Technically, technology is what's killing the planet. But that's not really the case. It's the greed that drives the technology. But a funny thing happened on the way to $100 genome maps and 3D printed plastic toys.
Technology has single-handedly been the greatest human creation in our existence. But ironically, it may also be the worst invention of our lifetimes, possibly the harbinger of humanity's own destruction. As computers connect us more and more, civilizations become ever more dependent on each other. This creates a global ecosystem that has the ability to propel the race of man into a new space age, but it is also very fragile. With someone being able to travel the globe in a day or less, a global pandemic is just one of the many, many threats those of us must face. If any of a myriad of numerable hazards were ever to cripple supply chains or electrical grids, riots and worse would most assuredly follow.
In 2007, a new presidential directive was signed quietly into law. This maps out the government's response to a crisis, a plan to cope with a real dark winter. It is known as Directive 51.
The threats of global riots would push for a response. This gave form in the way of a new presidential directive that was signed under the radar, Directive 51. It created a new response team involving shadow agencies and sleeper cells that would be activated in the darkest of times to protect citizens and try to restore some semblance of normal. The Strategic Homeland Division, otherwise known as the Division, is a group of highly trained agents provided with advanced technologies. Federal personnel in service to the United States government, these individuals work autonomously while still sharing very light interconnectivity with other agents. They are strategically placed within the civilian populace in which they live normal lives until activated, at which point they are to ensure that order is restored before being deactivated and allowed to continue their lives. Their activation means that all other avenues have failed, including the use of local law enforcement and even that of the military. Although based in the United States, these people arguably work within any jurisdiction, and it was hoped that they would never be activated. Unfortunately, that hope would fail.
That's how you make a killer virus, you see. Mix in genetic code from other diseases, and you move the sliders all the way up on lethality and virulence. The goal was a 90% mortality rate. I'm not sure my green poison is going to quite hit that, but honestly, that's just details. As long as most of humanity goes, the Earth stands a fighting chance.
The first domino to fall that necessitated the deployment of the division would be one Gordon Amherst, his last name indicating roots from the United Kingdom. Never trust a British scientist. The man was well known for his papers and talks about gene manipulation and human overpopulation. His views on Darwinism and survival of the fittest were known to be extremely controversial. Amherst ultimately believed that the world had become too overpopulated and that Mother Nature needed help in destroying those who were here. He was basically some Christian straw man of evolution. Gordon would obtain strains of smallpox from Vitaly Chernenko, another virologist who may have not been aware of his extreme plans. Amherst's supervirus was engineered to kill 80 to 90% of the population, with 5% having a natural immunity. The creation of this supervirus was the next domino to fall.
Did you know that a flu virus can survive on the surface of a banknote for up to 17 days? One day there will be a pandemic. It could begin during the crush of Black Friday sales. A pathogen will jump from tainted banknotes to human skin, onto food, toys, children, and loved ones.
As stated, the dollar flu was bioengineered to spread quickly among the population and initially had no symptoms. When these symptoms finally did begin to manifest, medical services believed it to be a smallpox outbreak. By the time doctors realized that it was much more dangerous, it was too late. While we know Amherst released the virus on a Black Friday that occurred on a November 23rd, the year of the outbreak is still debated. Many have argued that the events take place in 2007, but this can't be so, given that some of the guns found in the game weren't in population till after 2010. Others have stated that the game is actually set in 2020, the evidence of which is kind of an oddity that's found in the game itself. There is, or at least was, a sign on Chelsea Piers stating that the Hudson Piers Sports and Entertainment venue was having a 25-year anniversary. The Piers started being a sports and entertainment venue in 1995, and basic math makes it 2020. Unfortunately, November 23rd is not Black Friday of that year. Additionally, this banner simply means that it's past 2020, not before it. If we assume that it is past 2020, the next time a Black Friday would fall on November 23rd would be the year 2029. So assuming that the lore is consistent, the apocalyptic scenario is set on that year. Though why they decided to keep a banner up for 9 years at Chelsea's is weird. The supervirus was believed to be contained initially, but quickly became a pandemic impacting over 100 different countries. There would be quarantine zones set up and quarantines within the quarantine zones, these being known as dark zones in New York City. Because the government and medical communities did not initially realize what they were dealing with, the supervirus was able to strike a massive blow to the Earth's population, which would lead to the last domino and the activation of the Strategic Homeland Division.
An entire American city.
Known as the green poison, Central Park has been converted to a mass burial ground.
Power outages, gas line leaks, fires. The government's
Expecting another night of widespread looting.
People of New York are begging for
Any available units. Fire and house in the
our first responders are either dead
no resources available.
or treated like animals.
It's not our job. We're not trained for that.
The final domino would be that of society's destruction itself. After the release of the green poison, trade quickly failed and the stores began to run bare. It wouldn't be too long before the power grid went out itself. Every person would have to fend for themselves. Every single person was now potentially a threat. By order of the president, the local, state, federal emergency services, and military agencies of New York would merge to create the Joint Task Force. This included the New York Police Department, firefighters, and National Guard. Additionally, SARA, or the Catastrophic Emergency Response Agency, an organization focused on the green poison solely, was formed and tasked with working with the JTF. These individuals tried to restore society to what it was, or at least attempt such a feat. The Joint Task Force would fail and begin to fracture in and of itself. This is when the division is finally activated and we would see the first wave. The initial first wave of division agents moved into the core of New York City with JTF and attempted to retake it. Unfortunately, by this time, the area was completely destroyed, with lawlessness making it all but impossible to save lives. Agents attempted to assist and either were killed or succumbed to the sickness. The government decided that the inner core of the city could not be saved and constructed giant walls to keep people in, creating the Dark Zone. All resources were pulled and the division agents were abandoned. What happened to the surviving agents and why the second wave was activated is a discussion for another time. But what do you guys think about the division lore and the creation of the flu? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.